For all things Halloween, this is Hauntformer, and today wraps up 2018. This was an awesome year, you guys, and I want to just say to each and every one of you watching, thank you for your year-round support. It really means a lot to me, because I know Halloween is such kind of a niche thing that I really appreciate you guys clicking and watching on my videos all the time. So thank you again for watching, and Happy New Year to all of you. I'm sure 2019 is going to be awesome, and that is especially the case when it comes to movies, but it's time to reflect on 2018 and all of the great horror films that came out this year. And I want to say, if there was one word that I could describe the movies of 2018 with, it would be average. There were a lot of average horror films. Movies like Strangers Prey at Night, Slender Man, Insidious, The Last Key, and The Nun weren't terrible movies by any means, but they also weren't great. They just kind of were in the middle. Now, before I jump to the top 5 of the best horror films, the ones that stood above the rest, I want to briefly talk about the worst. And I really wanted to give this spot to The First Purge because I just didn't care for the film. But I will say this, it was well written, it was well thought out, and it has a deeper meaning, and it actually was shot pretty well. So while I didn't personally care for it, I know a lot of you guys do, so I'm not going to consider it the worst horror film, and luckily there's already another contender. My least favorite horror film of 2018 obviously goes to Truth or Dare. This movie was, I don't even know how to describe it. It was a cash grab by Blumhouse, and rightfully so. It's such a big name, Blumhouse, that they're able to slap their name on a horror film and people are going to go see it. Most of their films are pretty solid. This one was a big dud, and it actually works as a comedy. So if you went into this movie watching it for how hilarious it is, you probably enjoyed it. I know I did for that reason, but in terms of a horror film, it failed in most ways. With the bad stuff out of the way and the mediocre stuff, it's time to move in to the top 5. And I'm kicking off the list with a Netflix original movie. And I just want to say, you're not gonna like it. You're really not. Number 5 goes to The Cloverfield Paradox. Now, okay, I know most people hated this movie, and let me explain. So, you probably thought that I was going to say something like Terrifier or Bird Box, and I'll tell you, I haven't really watched those completely all the way through, so I'm not counting them for this list. I'm sorry that I can't watch every movie, but with the Cloverfield Paradox in mind, while most people didn't like it, I thought it was a very original concept. It was shot relatively well. I thought the set pieces and the CGI and computer graphics could have been much better. But story-wise, it was very interesting. I think it picked up where the other Cloverfields left off in a unique way. And while it wasn't as good as the previous installments, I do think it was a very interesting horror film. And, to say the least, it did come out on, like, Super Bowl night or, like, the following day, so it did get the hype train ready as it came out. So for that reason, I'm going to say that the Cloverfield Paradox wasn't the best horror film, but it was among some of my favorites. Let's move on to number 4, my 4th favorite horror film, and probably pretty shocking for most of you, is going to go to Halloween. Now, I know most people would consider this probably the best horror film of 2018, and I think after rewatching it, I'm gonna like it a lot better, but my initial reaction still holds true. I thought it was just a little too fast-paced for a Halloween film, and also, because they called it Halloween, and judging that I'm such a big Halloween fan, I'm going to hold it to a higher regard as the other movies on this list because it's taking the Halloween name, it's taking the character of Michael Myers and of Laurie Strode, so I'm going to expect it to be better than these other ones. And I felt that though it was entertaining and a very well shot and well directed film, I think there were areas that definitely could have been improved, but it was still a very well done movie. And I think after rewatching it, I'm going to like it a lot better, and eat my words. Number 3 is also a very risky choice, and I'm going to go with it. Number 3 goes to Unfriended Dark Web. This movie surprised me in so many ways this year. And I know a lot of people still don't like this film, and I understand where you're coming from, but I feel like if they took the Unfriended part out of this movie, I would like it even more, and I think the general audience would as well. The original Unfriended definitely isn't a terrible movie, but it's laughable in many ways, and I understand why. It's very cheesy, it's very corny, it's too cliched. And this movie, it kind of follows the same beats, but it does it in a unique way with this dark web twist, especially throughout the movie. They use the technology quite well and make the movie very interesting and almost interactive, if you will. So at the end of the movie, you are left feeling satisfied with a very immersive experience, and you're also left with a very thought-provoking ending. There's actually 2 endings for the film, and I definitely want to get this one on DVD so I can watch both of the endings and kind of analyze the movie again, because honestly, I enjoyed it quite a bit, and it was definitely superior compared to the original. Let's move on to number 2. This one's actually one that you're gonna like, and this choice goes to Hereditary. This movie freaked me out so bad. I had nightmares for like 2 weeks after I saw it. This movie is the definition of a horror film, as horror films should be. It's well shot, it's well paced, well directed, it has excellent writing and cinematography, and it's actually scary, and it doesn't have jump scares in it. It's like the best kind of horror film. And my biggest complaint with it is actually that it's so great, that it's so heavy when you watch it and so intense, that it's not as enjoyable as my number 1 pick. And again, this isn't the fault of Hereditary, because it perfectly matches everything that it wants to accomplish. However, it's so heavy in some scenes that it's hard to watch often, and therefore, when it comes to the entertainment factor of the film, I prefer the number 1 option. But Hereditary does stand as one of the scariest films I've seen in a long time. It's in the top 5 of the scariest films I've ever watched. If you haven't seen it, watch it if you dare. But let's move on to my number 1 choice. This film is entertaining, immersive, scary, creepy. The music, the cinematography, everything comes together in one great package, and it goes to Unsane. This film was shot using an iPhone. I mean, it had a lens on it, but it was shot using an iPhone. It stars Claire Foy about a woman who is put into a mental asylum and can't get out, and the struggles that go along with this. And at the same time, she feels like her stalker from previous encounters is in this asylum with her and is tormenting her. This movie is just... oh, it's just really good. I really like this one, and it does stand as not only my favorite horror film of 2018, but my favorite film in general. And perhaps it's even one of my favorites in the past 10 years. It's just a really well done movie, and if you haven't seen it, I recommend you check it out. It's not as scary as Hereditary, but it's definitely more interesting and entertaining in many regards. It's very well done, it's very well written, and it, to me, was the best horror film of 2018. But these are just my opinions, and you probably disagree, so in the comments below, let me know what were your top 5 horror films of 2018. Thank you for watching, and remember, as always, for all things Halloween, this is Hauntformer, and Happy New Year.